welcome back to the deep dive. I have to be honest, the stack of papers you sent me this week, it kept me up last night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Not because it's scary, though some of it is, but because if this is right, everything I learned in physics is, well, not wrong, but definitely incomplete.
It's definitely a red pill moment for a lot of people. We are looking at a theory that doesn't just try to, fix the cracks in modern physics.
No.
It tries to tear down the whole building and start over with a new blueprint.
And we really need to talk about why that building is cracked in the first place. Because, we hear that physics is settled.
Right.
You drop an apple, it hits the ground.
Yeah.
Gravity works. We have GPS. Feels pretty figured out.
For everyday life, sure. But for the last 100 years, physics has been suffering from this massive internal conflict. We call it the Great Divide.
Okay.
On one side, you have general relativity. That's Einstein's world.
Which is the big stuff.
Yeah.
Planets, stars, black holes, everything's smooth.
Exactly. It is a beautiful, smooth theory of geometry. But then on the other side, you have quantum mechanics, the world of atoms, of subatomic particles.
And that world is jittery, it's pixelated, and chaotic.
And the problem isn't just that they don't talk to each other.
It's worse.
Oh, it's worse. They actively contradict each other. If you try to use quantum math to describe gravity, the equations just spit out infinity. They break.
So it's like trying to run an iPhone app on an old Game Boy.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right.
The operating systems just do not match.
Right. And from what I've read, the usual fix is to just add stuff.
Yes.
Tiny vibrating strings or 6 extra dimensions all curled up or new particles to plug the holes. It feels a bit like patching a tire with duct tape.
That is a fair assessment of a lot of modern theoretical physics. It's often additive. But the material we're diving into today, supersymmetric geometric quantum mechanics, SGQM for short, it takes the opposite approach. It doesn't want to add patches. It wants to replace the foundation.
And that foundation is space-time itself. We're looking at these documents on the Aetheron model, and the hook here is just fascinating. What if the universe isn't a stage where things happen? What if the stage itself is the machine?
Exactly.
That is the core premise.
Yeah.
Instead of a passive void, SGQM proposes that the vacuum of space is an active rotational engine.
Okay, let's unpack this, because when I hear Aether, my brain immediately goes to, guys in the 1800s with monocles.
The luminiferous ether.
Right, this invisible wind blowing through space. But science disproved that, right? The Michelson-Morley experiment.
They did. That was a static fluid that light was supposed to swim through. SGQM is very careful to distinguish itself from that. This isn't a fluid.
It's a geometry.
It's a geometry.
Yeah.
Specifically, the source material defines the physical vacuum as a 12-dimensional rotational manifold called the Aetheron.
Okay, my brain just creates a blank space when you say 12-dimensional. We have to address that. Why 12? Help me visualize this.
Yeah.
It's tough because we live in 3D. Up, down, left, right, forward, back. But think of dimensions not as places, but as degrees of freedom.
Independent ways something can move or twist.
Exactly. So a train on a track has 1 degree of freedom, forward or backward. A drone has 3.
Up, down, sideways. Okay.
Right. Now imagine a drone that can't just move, but can also spin, tilt, yaw, and maybe fold in on itself in complex ways. The Aetheron model says the space right in front of your nose isn't empty. It is a lattice, a structure. And that structure has 12 distinct axes it can rotate around.
12 different ways to spin.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And when you combine those axes, you get planes of rotation. The math here, it's governed by something called spin-12 symmetry.
Okay.
It says there are 66 different generators or planes where these rotations can happen.
So instead of empty space, I should imagine this incredibly complex, invisible lattice that can spin in 66 different ways.
Essentially, yes. And here is the key shift. In our standard view, we think of an electron as a little object moving through space.
Like a marble rolling across a rug. Sure.
In SGQM, that particle isn't a separate thing. It's a rotational state of the Aetheron. The electron isn't a marble on the rug.
The electron is a knot in the rug itself.
Exactly.
Wait, so the particle isn't a thing, it's an action.
Precisely. Mass, charge, spin. These aren't independent tags attached to a particle. They are just different ways the Aetheron is rotating at that specific point. It's a generative medium.
That is a huge conceptual flip. It just dissolves the difference between the actor and the stage.
It does.
And this leads us to the absolute heart of this theory. There is a single equation that seems to rule everything in these documents. It is called the Aetheron theorem.
This is the SGQM invariant. If you take nothing else away from this deep dive, take this equation. The source writes it as Alpha squared equals mu squared plus E rot squared.
Okay, alpha squared equals mu squared plus E rot squared. And I looked at this and I thought, I know this. This is 8th grade math.
It is. It is the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
But instead of measuring a wooden triangle in math class, what are we measuring here?
We're measuring the fundamental components of reality. The documents use this really cool analogy of a rotating right triangle in darkness.
I love this visual. Walk us through it.
Okay, so imagine you are in a pitch black room. There is a right triangle spinning in front of you, but you can only see its glowing corners, the vertices.
I can't see the lines connecting them.
Exactly. And as it spins, the position of those corners changes relative to you. The sides of this triangle represent oscillating fields.
So let's break down the sides.
The bottom side, let's say, is mu. That's the mass component, the fermionic projection.
Okay.
The vertical side is E-rot, the rotational energy component, or force.
And the hypotenuse, the long side, is alpha, the conserved rotational magnitude.
Or the geometric synchronization factor. This is the profound insight. In this model, the total geometric magnitude of the universe, that hypotenuse, must stay constant. It is invariant.
So, if I'm understanding the geometry, because it's a right triangle, the mass side and the energy side are orthogonal.
At right angles, yes.
They have to be.
And that orthogonality is crucial. It means mass and energy are distinct projections of this single rotating state. But here is where it gets really interesting. Because the hypotenuse, alpha, has to stay constant. If you increase the mass component, if you stretch that bottom side...
If the hypotenuse can't change length,
yeah.
The energy side has to get shorter.
Boom. You have just derived the relationship between mass and energy without needing Einstein's E equals mc squared.
They're linked by the geometry.
They're trading height for width to keep the triangle the same size. Mass and energy aren't separate things. They are locked in this geometric dance.
One moves, the other counter moves, all to keep the triangle intact.
Exactly. It unifies them by constraint. You don't need a separate theory for how mass turns into energy. The geometry forces them to be related.
This brings us to spin, which I usually find terrifyingly abstract. But SGQM has a very specific take. We know from physics that fermions matter particles like electrons are weird.
The spin 1/2 problem, yeah.
I have to spin them around twice, 720 degrees, to get them back to where they started.
Yes, it's one of those things you just memorize. You turn an electron 360 degrees, it's in an inverted state. You have to go another 360 to get back to identity.
Which makes no sense in the real world. If I spin my coffee cup 360 degrees, it's back to facing me.
Right.
If I have to spin it 720 degrees to get it back to normal, I probably spill coffee everywhere.
But in the geometry of the Aetheron, this makes perfect sense. The sources explain it through independent internal axis rotations. The electron isn't just spinning like a top on a table.
It's rotating through these other dimensions we don't see.
Right. But SGQM doubles down on this. It talks about a 1440-degree supercycle. That is 4 full rotations. Why do we need that?
This is the unification step. We have the fermion cycle, the 720 degrees for matter. But if you want to unify matter with force, with bosons, you need to synchronize them.
The system has to complete a double-double cycle.
So you have the matter cycle and the force cycle running at the same time.
Yes. You integrate the fermionic 720-degree rotation with a simultaneous bosonic 720-degree rotation. When you couple them, the total geometric action is 1440 degrees, or 8 pi.
8 pi. Okay, I've seen that number before. That's in Einstein's equations for gravity.
It is. The Einstein field equations have the term 8 pi g. And in standard general relativity, that 8 pi is often just treated as a normalization constant.
A number you plug in to make the units work.
Exactly. But SGQM says Einstein didn't just get lucky with a random number.
It's there for a reason.
Right. SGQM claims that 8 pi represents the full rotational modulus. It is the mathematical signature of this 12-dimensional manifold completing its full synchronization cycle. It connects the quantum world directly to the curvature of gravity.
That is a bold claim. It's saying Einstein was right, but he didn't know why that number was there.
And that is the role of a unification theory.
Okay, we have to talk about the most controversial part of this stack, the non-propagation hypothesis. This is the part that made me want to throw my laptop across the room.
It is certainly the most radical shift.
The theory says that light and gravity do not travel as waves through empty space. But come on, I look at the sun. That light took 8 minutes to get here.
Hmm.
We wait 20 minutes for a signal to get to Mars. How can it not travel?
So we have to be precise here. SGQM isn't saying the effect is instantaneous. That would violate causality. It is saying the mechanism isn't a bullet flying from A to B. It is a resonance.
The pendulum analogy in the text helped me, but I'm still struggling.
Let's use a more modern analogy. Imagine you're watching a movie on your computer screen. You see Mario run from the left side to the right.
Okay.
Did a little red pixel man actually physically travel across your screen?
No. The pixels on the left turned off and the pixels on the right turned on in a sequence?
Exactly. The image traveled, but the substrate, the screen, didn't move. SGQM says the universe is the screen. The Aetheron is the grid of pixels.
So a photon isn't a bullet. It's a ripple of pixels turning on and off.
It is a resynchronization of the lattice. The energy state is being handed off from one geometric point to the next.
Okay, that makes sense for the what, but what about the how fast? Why that specific speed?
In the standard model, c, the speed of light, is just a speed limit. We don't really know why it is what it is. But if the universe is a screen, then c is the refresh rate,
The refresh.
the phase velocity modulus. The lattice can only update its state so fast. It takes a finite amount of time for one point in the geometry to tell the next point, hey, twist this way. That processing speed is the speed of light.
So light is just the ripple of the Aetheron updating itself, and the universe's hardware can only update at 300,000 kilometers per second.
Precisely. It preserves all the observations of relativity. Light still appears to travel at that speed, but the underlying mechanism is completely different. It is structural, not projectile.
This sounds elegant, but as we always ask, is it just a pretty story, or can we test it?
Absolutely. The documents are very specific. SGQM claims to be structurally falsifiable. It makes different predictions than general relativity in extreme environments.
Like gravitational waves. We're detecting these with LIGO.
Right. General relativity says that when two black holes merge, the gravitational waves should wing down and fade away smoothly.
But SGQM predicts echoes.
Yes, post-merger echoes. Because the Aetheron is a lattice structure, like a crystal or a bell, it predicts that after the collision, the space-time geometry needs to settle. It's like ringing a bell.
It doesn't just stop instantly. It has harmonics.
Exactly. And the sources mention that LIGO has actually seen some anomalies that look a bit like these echoes.
Really?
There have been reports of high-frequency deviations that standard GR struggles to explain perfectly. SGQM says that's the Aetheron lattice settling.
So if we get better detectors, like LISA, and we see these echoes clearly, that would be a huge point for SGQM.
It would be the smoking gun.
Speaking of black holes, we have to address the singularity.
The point of infinite density.
Standard physics basically panics there, right? Gravity becomes infinite and everything breaks.
It is the math screaming, I don't know!
So how does a geometric theory fix that?
By imposing a structural floor. Remember our triangle, the Aetheron theorem.
Right, the hypotenuse has to stay constant.
Exactly. That invariant alpha means there is a hard limit. You can't have infinite mass. The geometry forbids it.
So you can't just crush something to zero size.
No. As the curvature increases, the Aetheron just converts that translational energy into rotational energy. The source calls black holes topological phase transitions.
That sounds much less scary than infinite crushing darkness.
Think of it like water freezing into ice. Same stuff, different structure. When matter falls into a black hole, it doesn't vanish. It gets spun up into those extra dimensions.
So matter doesn't get destroyed, it just shifts gears into a higher dimension.
Effectively, yes. It gets re-encoded. It puts a speed bump on the apocalypse.
This whole concept forces you to look at the room around you differently. We think of stuff and space. I'm holding a pen, that's stuff in the air, that's space. But SGQM says the pen is just a knotted up spinning state of the Aetheron, and gravity is just the coherence of that same Aetheron.
It dissolves the duality. There is no actor and stage. There is only the performance. And it unifies everything by constraint. No new particles, no magical strings.
Just one rule.
Just one geometric rule. The Aetheron must rotate, and it must conserve its rotational magnitude.
And from that one rule, you get mass, light, gravity, everything.
That is the promise of the theory. It builds downward from geometry rather than upward from smashing particles together.
It's a heavy concept, but it is remarkably beautiful. It changes the question from what is the universe made of to how does the universe move?
And that might be the more important question.
I want to leave the listener with a final thought, something to think about tonight. This theory reinterprets the speed of light not as a limit on travel, but as the processing speed of reality.
The synchronization rate.
Right. So here is the question. If the universe isn't built from things, but from rotation, if solid reality is just the coherence of a spinning geometry, what happens if the spinning stops? Or, even wilder, what if we could learn to spin it differently?
That is a question for the next century of physics.
Thanks for diving in with us. We will see you on the next one.
Keep looking up.